So what can we talk about? Other than how, yeah, when it comes to kids, boy.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I'm a noodle, boy. Yeah, that's when Nancy takes over, I just leave. That's pretty dang good, that big deal. I could never do that.
You know, when they talk about training and stuff, this is what happens. You may never use it, but when you got it, you got it.
And it's more things than just what people think the police do.
I have no idea.
No.
I have no idea.
I tell you, dispatchers is what people don't know
Right,
what they do.
they're the hidden gems. Yep.
I know, you know. See,
Jason,
thank you,
take care.
Jason.
Yeah, they're the hidden gems.
They have no idea. You have no idea.
You can see where everybody can't do it.
What's that?
You can see where everybody can't do it. You know,
And trust me, everybody
I
can't.
know.
Yeah, he was banged up pretty bad. God dang it.
No. Don't know which was which.
Hey, that's what my mom, she put me in a wheelchair down there. She's giving me a bike ride when I was like about his age.
See you.
And
Hi, Victoria.
she was pedaling and I was on the back bucking while my foot got in the spokes. And I wasn't walking, she said, for over a month.
All right. Bring the meeting back to order, gentlemen. Next on the agenda is Sheriff's Report. Morning, Sheriff.
Morning again, Sheriff.
Morning.
Thanks for all that good information.
Absolutely. I think that was the most important highlight, the report. If you don't mind, I'm just going to really breeze through fairly quick.
Yep, that's fine.
So there's a photo of Deputy LeBourget and this 4-year-old child. I'm not sure if we're able to scroll up on that or not, on your packet. But anyway, we kind of highlighted that because we are living in different times. The headlines aren't very favorable for law enforcement these days, and we just thought it was pretty cool how a 4-year-old was thinking about law enforcement and actually told his mother he wanted to do something for law enforcement, and the mother asked, like, "What are you thinking?" "Well, can we get him donuts?" So he showed up with some donuts, and we just thought that was pretty cool, so we just wanted to capture the moment.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
As far as training goes for the month of June, we had handgun qualification and we had rifle qualification. It's all mandatory training that we have to do on an annual basis. We had 13 officers attend SWAT training, and then 3 officers attended Mobile Field Force Command and Planning training. And basically, it was just training to go over different scenarios and work through them. You can see in June, we had 54 criminal complaints. I'm just gonna highlight the 17%, which would be the blue in the 6 o'clock position. It was disturbing the peace. We had actual 9 calls. And then we had 15%, the purple in the 9 o'clock position, 15%, which is our thefts. And I believe we had a total of 8 thefts. Moving on to our traffic citations, we had 82 verbal warnings, we had 19 written warnings, and 18 speed. We also issued 9 administrative citations, and we have to be, there's some guidance for that. The county receives the funding for those directly, but in these cases for speed where we're issuing administrative citations, it has to be 9 miles an hour and or less over the posted speed limit in order for us to issue those. So it's non-criminal, it's just a payable fine. It's like a warning with a fine amount. And then moving on, you can see our 2-year comparison. Basically, our total complaints is pretty similar than last year. Our criminal complaints went down a little bit, but you'll see our non-criminal complaints went up. Our drug investigations went up a little bit, and our total inmates, of course, went down. And of course, that's because of the ongoing pandemic that we're in with the coronavirus. If you look at our inmates, we averaged 22 inmates for Morrison County, and of course, we weren't housing any inmates because, again, of the coronavirus, COVID-19. So our population averaged at 22. And then the next page is just basically our sentences served, Huber payments, things of that nature. If there's no questions, I'll kind of go into a summary of our drug enforcement efforts. So our drug task force has been busy. I got 2 separate reports. I apologize I didn't put them together because we have 2 separate deputies working the task force. But we assisted in the metro with riots, so some of their time was down there because they're assigned to the SWAT team. We assisted in St. Cloud, as mentioned in the past. We were active with controlled purchase cases of methamphetamine, not only in Morrison County, but we assisted in Todd and St. Cloud City, as well as Benton County. Additionally, investigators conducted surveillance on various targets, conducted garbage pulls and intelligence gathering, and followed up with drug tips, and assisted the other Central Minnesota Violent Offender Task Force investigators as needed. We also obtained a vehicle tracker warrant on a vehicle, so sometimes if there's information where people are transporting drugs and we're trying to figure out locations where they may be going, things of that nature, we'll apply for a warrant if we have enough probable cause so we can see their location as to where they're responding to. We also assisted St. Paul Police Department with surveillance on a homicide suspect who was in the St. Cloud area. We assisted the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF, with surveillance and apprehension of a suspect involved in a Minneapolis 3rd Precinct arson case. And then again, just been busy with controlled buys, not only in Little Falls, but everywhere in our Central Minnesota Violent Offender Task Force area that we cover. With that, are there any questions on the monthly report?
Commissioners? Commissioner Zelinski.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Sheriff, I just want to go back to your presentation from earlier in your presentation that you just completed. And I want to emphasize on assist other agencies. If it wasn't for us assisting other agencies, we would not have the presentation that we had earlier today. Because other agencies assist us as much as we assist them, and it can't get done by one person. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything.
You bet.
Next on the agenda, Mississippi Headwaters.
Good morning, Tim.
Morning, Tim.
Tim?
Good morning. I have a PowerPoint here for you today. Do I have a clicker or I have a microphone? Okay.
Well, there's microphones
Oh,
on the
okay.
table.
Okay. I'm just trying to all figure this stuff out.
No, you and me both.
All right.
I'll
And
just
since
go
I'm
through
6 feet away, I can let my mask thing go.
and take it.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming today. How do I move the PowerPoint? Just kind of give you. Okay. We're just going to talk a little bit. The Mississippi Headwaters Board was created as an organization to protect the Mississippi River, the natural, cultural, recreational, scientific values. And today we're going to talk about an opportunity to help protect those recreational values. So on the very first slide here, our history, we had a conversation with Aiken County, and they have the most miles of the Mississippi River than any county or most states because of its windiness in there. And I just kind of wanted to have a conversation and talk a little bit about how can we have people in Aiken County experience the Mississippi River. So we held a meeting with the Aiken Soil and Water, the Land Department, DNR Parks and Trails, Great River Road, and we just started a conversation. We didn't know where it would go. Next slide, please. And we just kind of came up with some values. We thought about if people wanted to experience the Mississippi River, they probably want it short and sweet. And so this slide program is actually from our biennial conference, but I've shortened it and tailored it more to Morrison County. But they kind of want a short, sweet, and many recreationalists especially families kind of want to take a 3 to 5 hour trip down the Mississippi River and then go to their favorite eatery or someplace. It's just kind of a trend that we're experiencing now. We're also experiencing a trend that, you can't buy a kayak or a mountain bike anywhere because people are just wanting to get out. They've been cooped up. We also wanted to make a value that's information intensive, so you have maps so you know where you're going. You don't really need that well, you do have maps for lakes, but if you enter a lake, you kind of know where you're going to exit as well. When you get on a river, you don't have that opportunity. And also some interactive technology, because let's face it, our smartphones are with us, and we like information instantaneous, and let's use that as an asset rather than something against us. Next slide. And then, so some assumptions. Everybody kind of wants to be a Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. They kind of want to experience the Mississippi River, but they don't want to experience some of the unknown or perceived fear or dangers that could be out there. They still want to use their technology. And when people visit a park, if you ever think about this, you'll go to a park and you'll see like a trail that you can go on, and it even gives an outline of where the trail is and what it's going through. And it even might have the miles on it, but people have no idea how long it's going to take them to walk 5 miles. We don't walk anywhere anymore, we're always driving. We even have golf carts now. So, it's just something that we've kind of lost as a society. So we looked at that, and we definitely want if you're in a place, a definite place on the map that says here's where you're at and here's where you can exit. Kind of like when you walk into the Mall of America, you're a little overwhelmed, but you can go right to the spot and say, okay, you are here, and then you can figure out where you want to go. And basically, we determined that a rest area is kind of a good example. You can enter a highway, you can go down the highway, it says rest area 20 miles away, and then you get to the rest area and it says rest area. So that's pretty simple, it's not very hard. So next slide, please. So we developed a 3-panel kiosk in Berglund Park in Palisade, kind of as our test area. And panel 1 is going to have history, panel 2 is going to have the map on it, and panel 3 is going to have some safety information. In this particular area, we had a halfway sign on county land that tells you how far away you are from the exit area, and then we provide an exit sign. Next slide. So if this was the PowerPoint here and it was in PowerPoint mode, I could actually flip through some of those slides there. If you just want to go down and turn on or is this PDF? Okay, so that's just kind of the exit sign there at Aiken County on Highway 169. But we actually have kind of a beautiful, I actually brought it, oh wow, first time. This is actually the kiosk they built at the place. And sign 1 is kind of history. Sign 2 is your map. And sign 3 talks about safety, how long it's going to take you, how many miles. It even has information about your where the hospital is and the phone number. Just things you don't think about, but in case they do happen, it's there. Next slide, please. And we also added interactive technology where if you have your smartphone with you, which most people do, you're able to go out there and you're able to just kind of scan that QR code, and it'll bring up what's called a Venza map, which is a free app that you can download, and it will actually follow you in real time down the river, similar to what your Google Maps does or any type of map program, except that because you download the map, it uses less energy on your cell phone, so it's not completely depleted by the time you get down the area. Go ahead, next slide. So the Morrison River Signage Project, I think this is close to around our last slides. We want to work with county tourism to promote this on their website. We want to, somebody brought it up, I think it was Chuck Perrins, who works for Morrison County. He said, you always have these nonprofits doing fundraisers like Run for Cancer. Well, now that you've got a defined route, how about a paddle for cancer or, something like that? So I thought that's kind of a neat idea. And we kind of wanted to have the trailhead or the kiosk in a public area because that's where people kind of congregate and they can read it and they can actually do this by themselves. And it also developed an opportunity where canoe, paddleboard, and kayak rental opportunities. And so some economic generation because it always takes 2 people to go down the river. one to park at the end and one to start at the beginning, so you've doubled the amount of people, and you can kind of do that. I don't think people like to paddle upriver, but definitely they can if it's a nice day. I know when you get around, it's kind of a wind tunnel down when you get by Little Falls. When that wind comes out of the south, it really bucks some waves against you. But anyway, next slide. So this is, and next slide after this, we chose Belle Prairie to LeBourget Park, and Belle Prairie Park, I have that circled right there, and LeBourget Park is also there as well. It's about, I think it's like an hour and a half trip. I did it here a few weeks ago, so it's not very long, but you end up in LeBourget Park, and why not go to your favorite pub, eatery, wherever when you're done? So it's just kind of handy. We finished this year, we gave signs to Maple Island Park, which is right below the dam, to, I think it's Blanchard Dam, way down kind of by down there. And that's pretty easy because it's dam to dam. I mean, you can't really follow that. But we put signage there, beginning kiosk, and they haven't put it up yet, but they will. And so that's kind of what we're proposing. We have an MOU of understanding. We have canoe days, August 1st, this Saturday, and the signs are up at Kiwanis Park to Crow Wing State Park. So this will be the first time that I can actually show people on a map, no, you don't exit here, you exit here, and it has a Mississippi Overlook Park in Baxter. It denotes some of the prominent features, but it really promotes the recreational area part of the Mississippi River, because it's, I talked to some people and they're kind of like, this is such a simple idea. Why don't we think of this before? And so it's just a way to promote some of this. But the memo of understanding basically says that the Mississippi Headwaters Board is going to help with, I'm going to develop content, the graphic design, and fabricate the sign. But Morrison County, you would be responsible for putting, in this case, the kiosk up, which is buying the lumber and just installing the sign. And if some reason it gets wrecked in the first 5 years, we'll go on a 50% cost share basis with the county, and we'll, redo the sign and replace it. But anyway, after that, we'll and then after 5 years, everybody's off the hook. If you see a value in it, we can you can definitely replace it on your own dime, or but you're off the hook everybody's off the hook after 5 years. So we kind of left that way for everyone. So with that, do I have any questions from any of you?
I got one.
Yeah.
Enbridge. What is Enbridge?
Sure. Enbridge gave us the funding to do this. It was a grant they offered, and so we used that to promote the recreational values. Yep.
And do you know what the cost will be to the county, or?
Well, I think it's around $500 or less to buy the lumber, and then that's basic, and then whatever it costs for your employees to put up and build the kiosk. But that's pretty much it. So I'm thinking it's probably under $700 or $1,000. I mean, it can't be that expensive. If you want to, Brainerd Parks and Recs just built it. They could probably give you the freshest numbers. But yeah, it's pretty minimal.
Gentlemen?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Wilson?
I sit on this board and we've discussed a lot, and when we do trail systems around the county and stuff, it costs a lot of money. And this idea came up, and the Mississippi's been there for a long time, and I know a lot of people that didn't want to go down it because they didn't know how long is it going to take me to get from point A to point B. And I think this will really open up that tourism a little bit to use the river. And the signage, I think, is very important because people like to know I can go from here to here. And I think the phone will be nice if you got a waterproof phone. But I like this idea. I think this is something that we need to support because I don't know how little money you need to put into this to make this all work together. And they're going all the way from Aiken so people can follow the river down. So I thank you, Tim.
Commissioner Winter?
Mr. Chair, to follow up what you asked about the cost, I'm reading this here, and it's kind of an open end as far as what the county's gonna pay. And I'm just looking at, maybe it's 500,000, but if a kiosk comes in and the damage is $2 or $3 grand, I don't know. I just kind of am hesitant about, having an open-end cost to the county, even if it's minimal of $500 or $1,000. I don't know what you guys think of that. If a guy could put a cost.
I agree with you.
I see that principle. We actually have a design that we created that I give every person. This is this is the wood, this is the many feet of board you need, and that. So, I mean, it's really under your department, just how much do they want to spend? And they basically have the design. I mean, I never really thought about that. It's such a low cost to put up get the lumber for the kiosk. You can run right to Menards and get it, but, I would say it's under 1,000. And just to be safe, but I know Aiken County told me they built it under 500. So,
Tim, isn't some of that by the city too? Didn't we present this to the city of Little
yeah,
Falls?
so we presented it to the city.
Also, so,
So, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski.
I just want to-
yeah, I understand.
maybe there could be a cost share even with the city of Little Falls to do this. I am very clear, it's not breaking the bank necessarily. However, when you're very clear on, well, it gets wrecked, it gets damaged. And by the way, things like that happen every day. So when it does happen, the first time, the second time, the third time, it doesn't make any difference. It's kind of a cool thought if there's a little cost share with another agencies, I think. Just a thought.
Commissioner Winter?
No, I was just saying, it's, Mike sits on the board, and I'd go with his, what his recommendations would be.
I guess, I don't even know what we have to pay for this, but I mean, I think there's some organizations and stuff that would help with this. This is a low cost to get some stuff out there for people to use the river, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I mean,
It'll-
I think your biggest font isn't environmental, it's graffiti. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing.
Absolutely.
And how many signs do you have in Morrison County up where you promote your trails? I mean, at any time, they could get graffiti done, especially the remote ones. People like to shoot signs with buckshot. I don't know why. They just like to do it, especially DNR signs. And so I've just noticed that. But, something that's kind of has Mississippi Headwaters Board and it has Morrison County, to think people would really mess with it. But if they do, it could happen. The best thing about this is your maintenance cost. When you normally build a land trail, you have to maintain that trail. There's no maintenance on the Mississippi River. It maintains itself. So that's the biggest savings, I believe.
Tim, what's the process here, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, what is the real process here? Does Mississippi Headwaters supply the signs, and then we put them up?
Yeah, that's that simple. So I'll spend the next time I develop the content, what goes on the signs. I take all the pictures. I pretty much almost have it done, and then I just submit it to a graphic artist and make tweaks and make sure the logos are on there, and then I just deliver it to Morrison County. And next year, you guys can put that up and build a kiosk.
And I guess the real just is you wouldn't have to put a kiosk over it if you didn't want to, but you should.
Well, it kind of marks a trailhead.
Yep.
You kind of want a trailhead look to it. Aikens County's done it. Grand Rapids just last night agreed to it. Brainerd just did it. They got a nice kiosk at Brainerd. If you ever go to Kiwanis Park, it looks really nice. And same thing with Aiken County. So, it's just something that people are doing. It shows pride in the area.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Tim, where do you expect this to be put? In Belle Prairie Park, in LeBourget Park, below the dam in whatever that's called down there? Where do you expect this to all be put?
For this particular project, Belle Prairie Park would put it up by the landing
Okay.
there. And I've already worked with the city of Little Falls because they own LeBourget Park, and they're going to put up an exit sign, and that's only one sign with one post. So that's kind of where it goes. And we go right by the where you exit, and there's a dock at LeBourget Park.
I'm not familiar. There might actually be funding with Belle Prairie Park to be able to do something like this.
Probably, I assume the funds would come out of our park funds, or where would these funds come from?
That's what I would think.
I think we'll probably let Steve work on that one. He's got the Belle Prairie Park, and
I don't like voting for stuff that I don't know the price. It's my only hiccup, but what is the wish of the commissioners?
Well, I think we should know what the price is and we decide. I'd like to talk to Steve about it, to see if he can put it up and take care of it, and
Okay.
then we figure it out from there. I don't think we need to vote on anything today.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just, because Tim's gonna get the signs and stuff ready, correct?
Well, I'm not really gonna do anything until the memo of understanding is
Yeah.
Oh, I see,
signed.
okay.
But this project really doesn't take place until next year, so I'm getting things set up
All right.
for
We'll
next
put it on
year.
our next planning session then.
Yeah.
Yep, sounds good.
And I think that maybe, Mr. Chair, that something with terminology of not to exceed
Yes.
type of a thing, it would be my guess. But anyway.
All right. Any other questions?
Good information, Tim.
All right,
Thank
Tim,
you.
All right,
thanks.
thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Next on the agenda, social services report. Morning, Brad.
Morning, Brad. Good morning, Karen.
Karen.
First thing on the agenda this morning is Karen has some information on our financial assistance programs, as well as some of the waivers, and there are some waivers that are actually gonna end, so I'll turn it over to Karen.
Okay, do we have it up, diversionary work program? Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, as you can see per the graph, diversionary work program, as of April, we had total of 3 cases. Those cases have all been flipped to Minnesota Family Investment Program as of May 1st due to COVID. Diversionary Work Program is a program that works intense with the Workforce Center because those offices were closed. The state mandated that we flip them to MFIP. Minnesota Family Investment Program, as you can see, in April, we had 95 total cases. Minnesota Family Investment Program is cash assistance for families with children. We had 75 adults and 166 children. DWP, the amount we paid as of April 2020, $880. Minnesota Family Investment Program, the amount we paid, $75,735 in the month of April. Then we go to the standards for our cash programs. The standards did increase as of February of this year. Clients were told that the cash grant would increase by $100. That is true, but if you look at the full standard that's allowed, the cash increased by $100, but then the food was reduced. So if you have a parent with 1 child, the grant was $437, now it's $537. The full standard before 2-1 was $751, now it's $823, so that's an increase of $72. So when they say $100, the cash is $100, but the total is not. Extensions for Minnesota Family Investment Program. Most families can receive Minnesota Family Investment Program for 60 months lifetime limit unless they meet an extension. The extensions are MFIP employed extension. They have to be employed an average of 30 hours, 2-parent 55 hours a month. Limited work due to illness or disabilities is an extension. Hard to employ extension, ill or incapacitated extension. So if they meet these extensions, they can be on MFIP beyond 60 months.
Before we go into the child care assistance program, I just wanna go back to one of the slides that Karen talked about, the MFIP one. And as you can see, if you can back up just a little bit, Beth. Oh. Our MFIP caseloads were actually starting to go down, about 2 more slides back, I think.
One more. There you go.
Yeah, so as you can see, our MFIP caseloads were actually starting to trend down, because of course, well, unemployment was low and other factors were playing into that. Our workforce center was doing better with our individuals. So now that we've had the waivers, people are not, completing their household report forms, and so they are just kind of hanging out there. So we'll be curious to see what happens once we reach the other side of the unemployment benefit and kind of where our employers are. I know in talking with the Workforce Center, when we meet with them this afternoon, some of our employers have not been hit very hard, but our bars and restaurants certainly have felt the impact. So we'll see where our MFIP caseloads go now with, following COVID and unemployment and some of the other support programs that have been out there from the federal government. So I just wanted to make note of that particular slide for the commissioners.
Okay. Childcare. Morrison County currently has 61 childcare cases. Basic sliding fee, we have 43 cases. Transition year, they were on MFIP, but they're transitioning off of MFIP. We have 8 MFIP cases, we have 10 childcare. The allocation for childcare, as you can see, that goes down every year because we have not used the maximum amount of childcare in Morrison County. We have not had a waiting list in the last 7 years.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Jelinski.
Karen, can you in a nutshell kind of explain to me, when you say childcare, what does that mean? I mean, is that
It
giving me
means,
money to feed my kids, or what does it mean?
no, childcare assistance is actually, we pay the providers, we go off of a household's income, and they have a copay if their income is high enough. We pay if they're employed, if they're doing job search, or if they're education. So if you're working 40 hours a week,
Yep.
we would pay the provider the 40 hours plus
Who's the provider?
childcare provider.
Understood, thank you.
Any household childcare provider
Gotcha.
or a childcare program.
Okay, so you're gonna pay that person
Yep,
to babysit, call it whatever you want.
Yes.
It's not babysitting, and forgive me, but just in my mind.
Yep.
Childcare, okay. I got
Because we
you.
know not everybody has a wage that allows them to pay their mortgage,
Yep,
all
and
the
childcare.
childcare assistance.
Gotcha.
Because we really want to support those who are working. This is one of those programs that really can support individuals who are working.
Very good.
And can't afford childcare.
it's an excellent program.
Understood, thank you very much.
Okay.
To follow up on that, is there a, if I may, Mr. Chair, is there like a maximum that a person can make?
Yep, we're gonna go there.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Then you can see how much we spent for a BSF in 1 month, MFIP, and transition year. Okay. Now the income. 2-person household. The entrance level is less than the exit level. So they have to be under the entrance level, and they have to be, during the eligibility period, which is 12 months, they have to be within the 85%, but at redetermination, they have to be within the 67%. Redetermination is done once a year, and during the 12 months, they have to be under the 85. Gets a little confusing. But it is a good program. It helps people stay employed. It helps people if they're going to school for education, and it helps for job search.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Wilson.
I don't understand what you're talking about. So, I mean, the entrance level at 33,000 for 2 people, they have to be below that?
Below that when they apply.
Okay, so then what do you mean by the exit level?
Well, the 85%, there is a review done every 12 months. They have to be at the 85% for those 12 months. But when we actually do the review, they have to be at the 67% or under.
We don't want to make the programs too simple.
Right.
When it comes to determining eligibility, so.
Just as long as you know how it runs, that's the main.
Yeah, the main thing is the
Right on.
entrance level, and then, yeah, it gets a little
I guess
confusing.
that's what's confusing to me. Entrance level, you gotta be under 33,000, then how do you get to 60,000?
So hopefully now, because we're paying for childcare assistance, they're able to work more hours in their position and earn more income.
Right,
Okay,
We don't want to penalize them for earning more income because they can work longer while they're getting childcare assistance.
That's the whole
So,
purpose of this
Right.
program, is to get them on
Yeah.
their feet.
also, it could be like education, we paid for the education, then they get the job, and now they're earning decent wage.
but still probably not a wage that's going to allow them
Right.
to pay full-time daycare, continue their house or rent payment. So you want to hold them accountable to a standard, but you don't want to penalize them for getting a full-time job after education or you were unemployed, you get childcare assistance to look for a job, then you find a job, you don't want to take them off of childcare assistance right away.
Thank you.
So,
It's confusing. And authorized activities, the programs were not aligned prior, but they are aligned now. They all pay for job search, employment, and education. It's just that the MFIP, they have to be in the plan through the Workforce Center. The education for basic sliding fee and transition year and portability, the county would approve the plan. And then, as Brad said, we have a bunch of waivers now due to COVID. The cash assistance waivers, basically the clients don't have to report any changes. They don't have to work with the Workforce Center. They just continue to receive the grant. Now, once the waiver is over, of course, that's going to change. We also put on people that have used their 60 months and they did not have an extension, but due to COVID, those people were eligible. So once the waivers end, we will be looking at those cases again. Childcare assistance, basically if people lost their job, we do not close them if it was due to COVID. Reporting responsibilities for childcare are the same. If a childcare center or a daycare provider closed because of COVID and a parent could not take their child there, the provider could apply, notify the county that they closed because of COVID. They could be paid for 1 full month, plus we could also pay the provider where the child attended. So during COVID, for 1 full month, we could pay 2 providers. And then for SNAP, there were a few waivers. eSNAP was one waiver, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. What they did, if people were on food support in the month of March, they issued a supplement to all households who did not get the maximum benefits. For example, if I was getting Social Security and I got $16 in SNAP benefits for the month of March, in April, they sent me the remainder up to $194 because that's the maximum benefit for a household of 1. Now, they did that for March, April, May, and June. They're looking at also doing it for July. So some of our elderly households came out quite well if they were only getting the $16. Also, they did what we call PEBT. It is pandemic eligibility for our SNAP households. If you had a child between the age of 3 to 18, they were in school, but school closed, and they were getting free lunches, and those children were on SNAP, they automatically sent those children on their EBT card $425 per child. So some households also came out quite well there. Some households have, we had one that had 9 kids, and she called and said, this can't be right. It was right. She had a lot of money on her EBT card. They also, if they weren't on SNAP, they could apply for the PEBT program. They still can apply through July 31st and get the benefit for their children.
Through, did you say July 31st?
July 31st, yep. Employment and training. Oh, the other thing they did for SNAP benefits was they approved online purchasing because of COVID. You could buy online your food products with your EBT card. You could get that at Walmart and Amazon.
So are they increasing them benefits all because of COVID? Is that what
Yes.
you're telling us?
Yes.
Do they have an end date on them yet, or is it just open until they decide to?
Well, the
close it?
PEBT is done as of July 31st, and from what we understand, the eSNAP will end also in July.
All right, thank you.
and for SNAP in general, the waivers for reporting are gonna end, in September. So now we're gonna begin to send out notices, or the state will send out notices for both SNAP and MFIP recipients, GA recipients, because they're linked for, and they will have to begin renewals for the month of September. So even though they've extended the peacetime emergency both from the federal level as well as the state, the USDA manages the SNAP program, and so they're going to end the waivers for SNAP. At least that's the message today, and the notices are going out yesterday, I believe.
This
And
week,
they're-
yeah.
Yep, and they're advertising that, so we'll start to see an uptick in individuals who will be calling and coming in and providing eligibility redeterminations for SNAP and MFIP.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner
Karen,
Zelinski.
very informative as always. It just blows my mind sometimes, but
Thank you,
very
Jeff.
informative. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay, have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Karen. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Have a good day.
The next item on the social service agenda is requesting approval for me to sign off on a contract between our agency and Safe Families for Children. We received an innovation grant from Sourcewell, which we applied for, and the purpose of that grant was to work with Safe Families to create a nonprofit organization in Region 5 who will develop support systems for the children and families that we work with across Region 5. It's an evidence-based program that's in 40 states, and they currently have 3 to 4 offices in Minnesota. And we're real excited about having them begin and start to work with our families. So, and thanks to Sourcewell for providing this. So there will be no cost to the county. We were the pass-through for this particular grant. So looking for approval for allowing me to sign, and I did work with the county attorney's office on approval of the form, and they will sign off on it
So
as well.
moved.
Motion by Commissioner Winter,
Second.
second by Commissioner Zelinski. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm gonna abstain on this one because I'm a Sourcewell board.
Commissioner Wilson will be abstaining. Motion carried.
Thank you. All right,
you.
the next report I have is both public health and social services.
Morning,
And this,
Cindy. Morning, Penny.
Yep, so
Cindy.
Penny
Morning,
and
Penny.
Cindy are here to talk about the waiver programs. And again, this is a critical function for both of the organizations to maintain people in their own homes and support independent living, as well as other intent services for individuals in need. So I will turn over to Penny and Cindy.
Good morning, Mr.
morning.
Chair, Commissioners.
Morning.
I'm going to start, we're going to talk about the waivers that we supervise in public health, and those are the over 65 waivers, so that includes alternative care, elderly waiver, and essential community supports. Alternative care is a program that's designed for people that are low income, but not so low that they qualify for MA. So the idea being if you have low income and you need services to remain safely in your home versus transitioning to assisted living or nursing home, we can provide those services such as meals, housekeeping, home health aid, nursing, on, to make sure that you can stay there safely. So the criteria, of course, is that you're 65 or older, that you meet a nursing facility level of care, and that simply means that your condition is such that without some services, you're at risk to go to the nursing home. It doesn't mean that that's where you're headed. Just means that there's a threshold that you have to meet based on the assessment. And then there's some technicalities about how much income that you can have, and it's based on married and single, and they look at liquid assets, not things like your home and that sort of thing. And then you also have to have no other means to pay. So if you have more than the threshold financially, you don't qualify for that program. Sometimes people start on the alternative care program, use some of their funds, spend down to a level that they then qualify for medical assistance. And so then that they would transition to that level. The same criteria apply as far as needing to meet the nursing facility level of care. The difference is that alternative care is state funding and elderly waiver is federal funding. So the state of Minnesota having that alternative care program is actually very unique. Not many states do that. But statistically, they know that by providing that, it's almost like an early intervention. We catch more people that need services and keep them in their home longer and safer. And the last program is the Essential Community Supports. And so if you did these gradually, I probably should have started with Essentially Community Supports. So that's a very, very small budget and a very small amount of money. They still have to be low income, but not medical assistance. It simply offers fewer services than alternative care or elderly waiver. So they basically can get some meals, a little bit of housekeeping, a budget of no more than, I believe it's between $400 and $500 a month. So it's just another attempt by the state to say, let's see what else we can do to keep people at home as long as possible. When you look at budget for alternative care, elderly waiver, and essential community supports, this year we're down as far as revenue according to what we budgeted. However, we know that a lot of that is related to COVID because we're not going out doing the assessments and putting people on this program. We're doing assessments remotely, but we're getting fewer calls for people that are asking for these services. So I think as things change with COVID, we could see that number increase. I don't know if that means when COVID someday goes away or if sometime along the way family members that have been providing support get back to work and can no longer provide that support. We'll be getting calls, hey, I'm going back to work, can you help my mom?
I think too, part of that is just the ability to get providers to work with some of our residents as well. A lot of them are going into the home. So I think that plays into some of the.
Early on, we had some providers that literally pulled the trigger and said, we're done, we're not sending anybody out. And that has gradually changed. One of the reasons that that changed is they can get their hands on the personal protective equipment that they need to safely send their staff in. They couldn't justify sending a home health aide in to clean somebody's home if they couldn't provide them with masks and gloves. Those things are now more readily available. They've realized that providers, the need continues, and so they're going out. They still struggle with some staffing issues with finding people willing to go out and do that work, so that continues to be an issue. When you look at our expenses versus budget, we're right on where we need to be. We didn't fill a case manager position when COVID started. We did get that person on board now, so we had a gap in there where some of our staff were covering extra cases while we were trying to make a decision about whether or not we should fill that position, which we now have done. So that kind of helped balance out our revenue and expenses. The other thing that affected our budget, if you look at our budgeted amount, we're definitely down, and that's because we had that $53,000 in there. That was the South Country Care Connector that fell into this budget. We no longer have that revenue. So that staff person's been transitioned to more full-time case management, and we're still very busy, so it's not that we didn't have work for that person. But I just wanted to mention that that's part of the reason we budgeted so much further down on revenue. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning, Penny.
Thank you. Could talk a little bit about our under 65 waivered services that are provided to individuals. Eligibility is similar to what Cindy had talked about in regards to either meeting that threshold of nursing home level of care, meaning that they would need care similar to what maybe somebody at a nursing home level would need, or hospital level of care, or brain injury. Those are the three different eligibility criteria to get into one of the waivers underneath for people under 65. When you look, the first graph that you're going to see is the number of recipients that we have in this CAC CADI BI waivered services. You can see we continue to trend very significantly upward. And a lot of that is because we have additional providers who are providing community-based services. Waivers are no longer just for somebody deep end going into foster care. Now we are supporting people in the community, in their home, with services to help them with their grocery shopping, with paying their bills, with doing all of those daily living skills that people have to do in their own home instead of going to foster care. So we continue to see a large number of people going onto the waiver for that. And the state continues to allow and have budgets available for us to be able to authorize and do that. So in 2020, when I had just checked this, we were at 196 people that are being provided services under the CCB waiver. I broke it down by age a little bit. You can see that 2019 versus 2020, the children supervisor and the staff working with children are doing a great job of identifying the youth that can benefit this, help them impact their trajectory sooner rather than later. So we've had an increase from 2019, 14 individuals under age 18, to 2020, we have 31 individuals receiving services under a waiver. The adults also increased from 140 to 165. Initial questions on people receiving services? Going into the financial part of it, the state identifies a budget for each county and provides allocations to each county for new money to come in. We utilized all of our 34 allocations that we were given in the 2019-2020 fiscal year, but we had not utilized all of the money available, meaning we had more money than what was spent on the services for the people that we already had there. So we could use that money to go ahead and provide additional services to additional people, and we did that with 20 additional people and continued to remain under budget. So we put onto the waiver 54 new people in 2019-2020. That's 54 people who got a min-choice assessment, a new case manager that went out and met with them, identified services, and started onto the waiver.
Just one other comment about the budget. If you look at the 2019-2020 budget of $11 million, if, for those of you that remember, I've done a cost report. In 2017, Morrison County through Public Health and Social Services spent about $93 million across the board. Not all of it flowed through the county. Again, this is part of that pot of dollars that you see when we do the cost report. Unfortunately, DHS has not done a cost report for 2018, and we're now middle of 2020, and I don't know they'll do one for 2019. But it was always a good report to bring to the board to just show how much revenue flowed into the county as a result of some of these programs, even though it was not a large percentage of county dollars that were supporting those activities. But so if you look at that $11.5 million budget, that does show up under the cost report. And in 17, it was about 93 million that we utilized, so overall.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Question I have, I mean, if you look at the dollar amount from 15 to 20, it went up about $6 million or thereafter. Do we have a way to track, like, what happened to these people before they were on these waivers that they were eligible for? Did they just kick them out to the curb? Because again, we increased the numbers by roughly 100 people. And is there a cost savings by doing this, or is this just more government dollars throwing out there like, hey, you know, we're just, I don't know if you can answer my
Yeah.
question.
So I think that there's a couple things that I can add, and then if Brad has some additional information. But one of the things is that, yes, we did have a shift of people who are receiving county-funded, taxpayer-dollared services. The county had budget items to support people when they weren't eligible underneath a waiver for whatever reason, and when the waiver was shut down. Back in 2014, that, you know, kind of pre all of this, the state did not authorize allocations and budgets like this. They didn't have that, and that has shifted, and they're putting more funding into this preventative waivered type services instead of paying for the nursing homes and the hospitals and some of those things. So there was a shift there. We shifted, opening that up, getting more people that were county funded into this new funding stream to provide services to them.
And a part of the shift too was you had individuals, especially developmentally disabled is a good example, that waiver was shut down. So a lot of families had to just manage on their own with those individuals who were developmentally disabled. The other reason the state has shifted and opened up the waivers is because, of course, the closing of the state hospitals. They've seen over time that counties have struggled to manage some of those individuals, and so being able to provide waiver slots for some of those has helped support them in the community and not have high cost state hospital costs. So some of that money shifted from what we used to spend at state hospitals into the waivers and support those individuals in the community. So, good question, Commissioner. Is it a good bang for its buck? I think, again, it's supporting families, it's supporting individuals remaining in the community and in their own homes. And so it's been a good shift. It's also provided opportunities for case managers to have some support with the more difficult individuals they've been working with, because they just had to manage as a case manager without really a lot of providers until they could get them on the waivers.
Thanks for that information.
The next section is talking a little bit about our case manager revenue. You'll see that this continues to increase as well. One of the big things that was added to the revenue here is the addition of the case aid that we added in March of 2018. There are billable activities that can happen to support the cases that cannot be billed by a social worker, but can be billed by a case aid, and so we have been able to recoup on some of those. The case managers are doing a nice job of supporting the individuals they're working with, and that is showing through the revenue there. Just a few comments on some of the impacts in regards to COVID and how that has impacted some of these people. Like Cindy had said, some providers had really shut down and were not engaged in that. We're seeing providers open back up. We're seeing that the state has authorized for providers to open back up. They had shut down day services, adult day and employment services. The state said, no, you absolutely cannot provide those services because you cannot maintain the safety. So they have opened those back up now in July, starting to with some very specific criteria around that. A lot of extra hours on our foster care providers and our residential services because of those other services being closed, and case managers supporting both the client and their providers through all of those transitions.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions? Thank you for the update.
Thank you,
Penny,
ladies.
Cindy,
Thank you.
appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
I'll move on to the public health report, and the first RBA is a request for seasonal establishment renewal license for Ridge Ribbon Steakhouse in Motley.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Wilson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Winter. Discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And
Motion
then the
carried.
second request is a renewal of a 2 a.m. liquor license permit for Grub and Pub, and the sheriff has approved this.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Wilson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Jelinski. Discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. And then I just have one other note that I wanted to share with commissioners around food, beverage, and lodging. As we know, with the statewide mask requirements, it's created some challenges for businesses. But even before that, food, beverage, and lodging establishments were required, employees were required to wear masks or face coverings. And so we've been getting increasing calls and complaints, as well as some misinformation from food, beverage, and lodging establishments. For instance, there was a rumor that we had fined an establishment $30,000 for not abiding by the governor's executive order, and we have not done that. We also know that the state is taking this very seriously as far as food, beverage, and lodging establishments go. And so we are the delegated authority, and we want to provide good customer service to the businesses that we support. So we are gonna send out a letter, and I will CC the commissioners on this and kind of lay out our enforcement policies as it relates to the governor's executive order. And really, we want to give them every opportunity to follow the order without being punitive. And so we're kind of laying out a 4-step plan that if we get a call or a complaint, we're going to go out. If we see it, we're going to educate, but then we're going to have to come back unannounced in the next 10 days and make sure that they're abiding by the governor's executive order. And we're going to do that 3 to 4 times before we really are going to say, you know what, we might have to suspend your license for a period of time. The state is doing this, so one of the things we want to show the state is that we are following and supporting our businesses, and we don't want the state under alcohol and gambling to come in and start to enforce some of these things, because I think that's our role, and we want to support our businesses and let the state know that we are doing that. So I want to give the commissioners that information, that you will get a copy of this letter. And it's really just, again, to lay out a clear direction for our establishments that you need to abide by the order. It's no different than making sure your salad bar has ice and the food is cold, or your refrigerator's at a certain temp, or your floors are clean, those kinds of things. So it is one of those things, I know it's certainly not, we're all aligned with these expectations. But unfortunately, we don't all agree at what temperature our salad should be either, and so it's just one of those enforcement things that we have to do. So, I don't know if there's thoughts, questions from the board, but I wanted to make you aware that it is something I think we have to follow through on, given the governor's executive order for food, beverage, and lodging. We cannot force customers to wear masks. That's gonna be up to the businesses and the establishments how they manage that. I know we've had a call or two on that. But really, that's gonna be up to the establishment to decide if they're gonna let them in or not, so.
Well, we'd rather keep it within the county than have the state come down here and investigating our businesses, I know that. And I like the fact that we'll give them a break. It's tough on them businesses right now.
We indicate in the letter, we wanna keep them all in business. We wanna make sure they stay in business, and it's been difficult for them, no doubt
I like
about
that
it.
attitude, Brad, thanks. And Commissioner Wincher?
Yeah, Brad, and I thank you, Mr. Chair. I like that we're keeping it within the county. Is this complaint driven, or is this like, when you say that, 10 days, you're randomly gonna check on them? So if Commissioner Jelinski has a business and I complain about it for whatever reason, and then Commissioner Wilson does, and on, is that how you go in and do the inspection, and whether they're following the social distancing, or surprise, we just show up?
We are only going to be complaint-driven, or if we're out there on a routine inspection. So no, we're not gonna do drive-bys, drop-ins for any establishments. It's really complaint-driven, so, yeah, so that's a good
And then
question.
you have to go back. The rules say that he has to do a surprise in the 10 days after that complaint-driven.
So for instance, if you call up and say Jeff's running a business, they weren't wearing masks, we go there, and lo and behold, everybody's wearing masks, we're gonna say, thank you, we're not going back.
End of story.
It's said and done. If we go back and they're not wearing a mask, then we're gonna let them know, we're gonna educate them around the governor's executive order and let them know that we'll be back in the next 10 days to check again. So we're not gonna do drop-ins unexpected, it's gonna be complaint-driven or during a routine inspection, so.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Jelinski?
I too agree that we keep it as much as we possibly can within the county. But this is no different than a merchant selling cigarettes to somebody under 21, I believe it is now. It's a rule. We gotta follow the rule. If we find out that somebody's not following the rule, I mean, we're adults. Let's work with those people, make it happen, and do it. That's just what we have to do. So I like it. Nothing wrong with
It's a challenging issue, no doubt, irregardless of the rule, but it's challenging, and it's not comfortable to wear these all day in a business, and so even if they are wearing a shield, that is appropriate within the food, beverage, and lodging establishment, so it's not necessarily a mask that they have to wear. Face shields are appropriate as well, so.
Commissioner Wilson?
Mr. Chair, what about the people that throw the health card out there? And I guess I'm talking about a worker that can't wear it. Is that possibility, or can they just not work?
I think establishments can make accommodations for them similar to any other business. So if we go there and Jeff has 4 employees and one is not wearing a mask, and they say, this person has a condition that does not allow them to have their face covered, we would accept that. We're not gonna dig into their medical records or any such thing, but again, I think the order's particularly clear as well, that if a person has a condition that does not allow them to wear a face covering, we have to accept that and acknowledge that, so.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thanks, Brad.
It should go out sometime this week, and we will CC you so you're aware of it, so. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brad.
Extension report?
The extension office will not be presenting, it's just information in your board packet.
Yeah, Joan, we had that information given to us.
Yep.
Yes, we did.
Veterans report. Morning, Kathy.
Morning, Kathy.
Morning, Kathy.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So a little update on what we have going for veteran services. So talking a little bit about COVID and how that impacted how we help people and continue on with serving our veterans. So we've converted the VA, it took a little while, but they've converted to letting us have wet and digital signatures, which has been really nice because then we don't have to go out to people or whatever. So in the beginning of all this, the VA had always wanted a regular signature on all documents and claims that were submitted. And eventually they, like the rest of the world, have changed. So I think that's a very positive thing because it's going to make our lives a lot easier. We can do things electronically via email. We don't have to have the veteran come in and see us or go to their house, that kind of thing. So that's been kind of a positive, good thing with COVID. And we've been doing a lot more online meetings, so Zoom, WebEx, that kind of thing. So a lot like when you go to your doctor, you're sitting there looking at them on the computer screen. We can do that as well. That does help a lot with individuals so that they, again, don't have to come in and do that interpersonal or person-to-person visit. And it saves people time. I know I've been doing that with my VA appointments. It's awesome. It takes me 15 minutes instead of several hours. So it's pretty nice. Email, we've been using email probably, that's been our primary form of communication with our veterans and their families, which is, we've done a lot of that, but it's grown and it's much more, it's definitely the way that we work now. And it's kind of nice, it's convenient, it's easier for the people and for us. Though I get a lot of the emails, so then I've got to pass them on, because right now most people have my email as opposed to my coworkers, so I'm like, all right, we've got to kind of fix that. So trying to get their emails out there too, so I'm not getting all the things coming to me. Number of people that we've helped, it did go down, obviously, with the pandemic. People aren't out and about as much, but yet things took longer, especially in the beginning of this COVID stuff, because it was like, how are we going to process your claims? How are we going to make this work? So we were mailing out claims or meeting people in parking lots. How are we going to do it? But we had to make things work in a different way. But now that we've got more of a system going, it's it's quicker and more efficient. And seeing people, only seen 1 to 2% of our people in person in the beginning of this. Now people are coming in. People are really being good about the appointment stuff and seeing us via appointment. We have very few walk-ins, and that just seems to be the way of business now. So it's kind of nice because then we're more prepared as well. I hate sometimes when people, I don't hate, but when people come in and maybe they have a 2-hour thing that we're going to be working with them on, and then I've got someone else waiting, it doesn't work so well. So it's just nice to be a little more prepared for them and for us. We have less mail, like regular mail going out, because now with the digital signatures, and we can just scan and email our claims instead of having to mail them. So that's been a nice cost saver, because mail postage is going up, so seen a little bit of that. And a lot of people have they've had positive feedback. They've thought things have went well, that the transition of doing things electronically or however dealing with the COVID stuff has worked well. So we haven't had any major complaints or anything, so that's been good. Any questions on any of that? Okay. Negative things that we've seen, people are struggling. There are people that just miss the face-to-face interaction. It's not the same, and maybe they have health reasons that they can't get out or whatever it may be, and that's a struggle in our community or society overall. And some people, even with the face masks and stuff, they kind of brings up maybe if they've got some PTSD from a deployment where they've seen people wearing the face mask, having the face coverings, it does bother them a little bit. So they're struggling a little bit with some of the mental health things because, and I noticed that when it first happened, I was like, here I was in Walmart, and I was like, oh, I don't like this, and I didn't really know why, and then I'm like, my friend who served with me overseas goes, it's these masks, and I said, you're right, I mean, we all have it, but I was thinking, I'm like, it just kind of reminded me of my deployment a little bit. So I think people, obviously now we're getting more used to it, and it's just a norm. You almost feel weird without it. Some people, we don't have computers or cell phones or know how to use those. So when there were some barriers on communication with individuals within our society, and how are we going to help them because of not having the technology. We just assume that everybody has the internet, everybody has email, everybody has a cell phone and knows how to use it, but not everyone can do those things. So there were a few things that we had to work through, but we made everything work. We had to mail in the beginning more things to veterans because we still required the actual signature, so there was a lot more of that happening in the beginning of the pandemic, and then, of course, that has change now. And I think overall, everything has just slowed down. Our processes, there was a lot of claims, like if someone needed an exam for a service-connected condition, they require that they have an exam with the VA. Well, a lot of those services were shut down. So then claims were just totally slowed down because you can't get the exam, so they can't make a decision if someone is diagnosed with a certain medical condition or if it was service-related. And a lot of people working from home within the VA system as well, so that also makes things just a little slower. And as things are going on, we're all getting more used to our whole new way of living, and things are getting faster again, but it definitely was a work in progress, I mean. We are seeing more people in society is just seeing this. There's people that have financial issues, maybe they aren't able to work or whatever it may be, depression, anxiety. A lot of people just lonely. You know, so we've been trying to spread the word if there are people that are just at home and maybe they just need a simple phone call. We can have veterans that are volunteers who can call people once in a while, hey, how are you doing, that kind of thing. But it's just kind of all of us working together to help make sure everybody's okay. Any questions there? Everybody's so quiet. All right, and so what are we doing? What does our business look like now this summer? So we're down a little bit. In the summer, we tend to see that, and it's like, why are we down a number of people we see? But a lot of times, our veterans are in training if they're still serving, so summer's a very hectic time. I do think that people aren't coming in as much as they normally are, just because they don't want to, risk. Yeah, if they don't absolutely need to come see us, they're not going to. So that is slowed down, but it hasn't been a huge, drastic drop at all. And we also have lost a lot of our veterans. So our main population of veterans is our Vietnam veterans. Some of them are getting older, so they're passing away. World War II veterans and Korean War veterans, a lot of them, there aren't very many left. So we're going to be moving on to more of the Iraqi veterans and that era very soon, being our highest population. And right now, a lot of those individuals are still working. They've got kids, family, they're busy. So trying to get those people to come see us sometimes can be a struggle. And we're working on that. I do think a lot more things that we can do with them online help serve them better. So again, there's another positive thing out of all the negativity that we've had. And we have definitely a lot more deployments going out here soon with the Minnesota National Guard. So with that, we will definitely have more work once they return, and a lot of high demands. I mean, they've been serving on the state active duty missions, then they go on deployments. There's some people that are out in California now, so they went from state active duty to going for a month down in California, and then they're gonna come back and go on a deployment. So that's gonna be hard on people and their families. So we have to be prepared for those things. VA healthcare, how is that working? So it's definitely like everywhere, a little different. When you go to the VA, you of course got a check-in point and they check your fever and see if you have COVID. And a lot of areas within the VA are shut down. There's just certain doors that you can go through, and it's definitely been different for many of us. But they have, the cool things are that they are doing more phone visits with individuals, virtual counseling, things out there. They've been trying to reach out to all of their veterans a lot more. So they have providers out of New York that are working with our veterans, and they call them more often, making sure they're okay. So I think it's really neat that, especially the people with mental health issues, they're getting checked on a lot more. And they've probably got a little bit better providers, because some of these people, they're some of the top individuals in the United States, and they're really working their tails off to make sure that everyone's doing well. We've had a lot of billing issues for community care, because if you have emergency care or something like that, the VA may be able to cover those services for certain individuals. But we're in a transition between Tri-West and a new insurance company called Optum. And so with that, you always have some struggles, and of course they come to us, and we don't have a whole lot that we can do but just help them and try to get their bills sent to the proper place. So that's been really keeping us busy. And definitely a lot more phone calls, that kind of thing. Transportation, so the DAV transportation van that we have that's over on at Public Works right now, that's been going through all of this, so that's been nice. People still can get to where they need to go, so that has been helpful. And we've gotten iPads out to individuals to help them if they don't have a computer, that kind of thing. And these iPads have come from the VA, so not anything out of our funding or anything like that. Optical and dental services that some individuals qualify for, those were closed down. Those opened back up on July 1st. So that's been good because we've definitely had some people ready to go see their doctors. And goals of the future. So we're looking at, of course, we're all rejuvenating the website and making it better. So I want to get some videos out there that are short and sweet and to the point, but also let people know, what do you got to bring with you when you come to see us? Why would you want to come see us? Those kinds of things. And just get that website more interactive and keep more up to date and get the old stuff off and the new stuff on. So we're all working on those things together, but just to liven it up and make it something that people want to visit. And then with this time is just to work on cleaning up our share website, our share site or our share drive, because I'll get a lot of stuff in there that doesn't need to be in there. So those are things that we just all need to work on and keep everything up to date. And definitely when I looked at our website, I was like, oh my goodness, we definitely were not keeping that up. So we had things from years and years ago that definitely didn't need to be on there. So it'll be nice to rejuvenate that. And this kind of forces us to do it. So, and just working on things of the future is definitely to come develop programs, whether we got to do it virtually or however, but wellness things for families and veterans. Just to get people, keeping them positive through all the things that are going on. It's huge. It's very important. And figuring out how we can do that best to serve everyone. And working with some of our community individuals to do that, because I'm not the expert, but I can certainly help. Any questions? And what are our highlights? So one of our fun things that we did a couple months ago, because it's hard to celebrate things for people, we had a 100th birthday of one of our veterans. He's over at the Little Falls Care Center. It was great. We had the Sheriff's Department, we had Camp Ripley Fire Department, a lot of different people from the community that got together and celebrated the World War II veterans' birthday. And yeah, so there's been a lot of things. I've seen that out in the community here and there. We have parades that we do to recognize people and just to make things a little bit better. So those are exciting, fun things. And I've been doing recently, I've started in our newsletters, capturing stories of different individuals, whether they've done great things for the community. We just kind of picking a veteran of the week, and it's been kind of fun, something different to read and get to know people that have served our community and country. And with claims, we've had some great news stories there. We have what was called the Blue Water Navy. So what that means is people that served in the Navy and were within 12 nautical miles of Vietnam and during the Vietnam War, they were exposed to Agent Orange. And the government now recognizes those people as veterans. Many of these individuals filed claims years and years back, and they were denied. Now what's happening is we can file for them again, and they've been paying back. There was a person that went back 30 years, they got back pay. So $500,000 to, actually this ended up going to a widow, and she had nothing. I mean, she's out in the middle of nowhere in Morrison County, had nothing, and all of a sudden has it's like winning the lottery. I mean, she didn't even know what to do. We had another guy who got like $200,000, and all he wanted was a refrigerator with one of those ice machines. So I'm like, really? That's all? And he's like, that's all I want. So, I mean, there's been some neat things, and some of these people have been suffering for a long time. I mean, obviously, with the widow, her husband had passed away from a very chronic illness that was service-connected. So it's kind of neat to see those things. Luann, she was the person who got that huge one for someone. So I had to give her a big kudos because she's done a great job. Did Memorial Day and 4th of July things, a lot of those things were virtual this year and different, but it still worked. We still made things happen and made the days special. We had the Vet CSA grant. What that was with Region 5, we had a food program that we had at Sprout. We had 10 families that were sponsored, and they would go there and get education on making nutritional meals and having fresh produce and items to eat and live a better, healthier life. And so we'll continue a little bit of that program. We got a grant from Sourcewell that Morrison County individuals can participate in. So people liked it. If anything, it was a social aspect, but also taught people how to prepare healthy meals, which we all could use it sometimes, I know. And we've got, there was a COVID grant for veterans who were impacted by COVID, whether if they couldn't work or their spouse was not able to work, or if they actually got COVID. There was a grant through Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs for $1,000, and within, so there's 87 counties. If you average it out, 28 people per county would be the average, you know, if we, anyway, we got 27 people approved, so that was good. So I think we did all right. And we probably got a few more. They've been really slow. They thought this would turn around really quickly, but it didn't. When they started getting applications, thousands and thousands, they realized they didn't have the staffing to process the claims. So it's taking a while for people to get the money, but hey, money that you didn't have yesterday and you have today is always fun. In Region 5, they had gotten some funding, so each county within Region 5 got $5,000 to help veterans in crisis, which has been nice, because there's times where people don't qualify for VA benefits and for whatever reason, and so we've been able to help a few individuals with some of that funds.
Excuse me, Region 5 gave the Yellow Ribbon Committees this 5,000, is that what you're saying, or? Is
Yeah,
there a
so we have Morrison County Yellow Ribbon, and then there's a Region 5 Yellow Ribbon.
Oh.
And so they're two different things, but serving the same purpose. So Region 5 had gotten this funding, and then they split it up amongst the counties that are part of that. So, yeah, so each one of us got 5,000, and we just, as people have come up and I can't help them in another way, then I can use this to help them. And we've had a lot of great partnerships with community organizations, providing food, providing, you know, assistance in one way or another to people who are suffering during the pandemic or whatever it may be recently. So it's been nice. A lot of cool stories and things out there of people just being right on the ball and helping others. And a lot of it's veterans helping veterans, so it's really, really neat. A lot of people just providing rides or whatever it may be. So what do we got going with our Minnesota National Guard? They're super busy, so like I said, I think we will definitely see a lot of that as they return, just a lot of people from state active duty helping with all the things that are going on in our society right now. So, and then on our last page, just some cool pictures of some of the things that we've had going on. But that's about it.
Very good. Commissioners?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wilson?
Kathy, I just want to thank you for the job you do. I see your emails and stuff that come through, and I know you do a wonderful job at helping the veterans. You know, I see when you're asking for furniture or helping somebody move or whatever, so I appreciate the fact that you're doing the job you are and your staff.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It helps because a lot of us are veterans or married to a veteran or whatever it may be. So yeah, definitely just, yeah, it's more personal.
Thank you, Kathy.
Have a
Thanks,
great day,
Kathy.
everyone.
Kathy?
Have a great day. Next on the agenda, auditor's report. Morning, Chelsea. Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
Morning.
Today I have with me here Derek. He is our newest member in the Morrison County Auditor Treasurer's Office.
Welcome, Derek.
Thank you.
First on the agenda today, I have requests for approval for the CARES Act grant application. The total amount allocated to Morrison County in the application is $29,758.17. The Office of the Secretary of State received funding through the 2020 CARES Act to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus domestically and or internationally for the 2020 federal election cycle.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion.
I'll second
Motion by
it.
Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Jelinski. Further discussion?
This is strictly for the election stuff, right?
That is correct.
Yep.
We had a good discussion on this at our last planning session, and Chelsea has read it and understands the do's and don'ts. So I'm in support of this. Anything else, gentlemen? Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next on the agenda, I have a resolution. This is specific to the CARES Act grant application. If I could please read the resolution for the record.
Yes, please.
Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic requires additional efforts to make the election process safe, sanitary, and effective, and whereas the Office of the Minnesota Secretary of State is currently soliciting grant applications from counties for grants pursuant to laws 2020, Chapter 77, Section 4, and the Federal CARES Act, and whereas grants will be provided to each county pursuant to the formula set in Section H of the grant application provided by the Office of the Secretary of State, and whereas the funds provided by the Office of the Secretary of State are provided for the use set forth in the Federal CARES Act, and as further restricted by laws 2020, Chapter 77, Section 4, Subdivision 4, and whereas those purposes are primarily for the protection of persons involved with the election process, including voters, as well as certain other purchases set forth in law. And whereas the county will work with municipalities within the county to determine a fair, equitable, and mutually agreeable allocation of the funds within the county and between municipalities. And if the agreement cannot be reached, the funds will be distributed pursuant to the Office of Secretary of State's identified default allocation formula as determined by the Secretary and provided in Section E of the grant application. And whereas the grant application is to be completed by the staff of the auditor or other staff responsible for the administration of elections in this county, and whereas the grant application must be completed, certified by a county official, typically the chief county election official, returned to the Office of the Secretary of State, and a grant agreement executed prior to the receipt of the funds to which the county is entitled to pursuant to Section E and F of the grant application. And whereas laws 2020, Chapter 77, Section 4 requires a 20% match for the grant with a 25% match for electronic rosters purchases. And whereas the grant agreement will reflect the grant application for each county, and whereas additional assistance may be forthcoming later in this election cycle from the state and federal funds, particularly those funds appropriate for these purposes by the legislator, and whereas there are continuing needs throughout the election cycle for both COVID-19 and election security efforts and associated costs, and where time is of the essence. Therefore, it be resolved that the grant application in the form presented to the board and to be submitted to the Office of the Secretary of State is hereby approved. It further be resolved that the board hereby appropriates the required match amount as indicated in the application for the purposes set forth in the grant application. It further be resolved that the chief elections officer of the county and staff are directed to submit this approved grant application at the earliest opportunity. And it be further resolved that the grant agreement is provided to the chief elections officer of the county. That person is delegated the authority to execute that agreement and return it to the Secretary of State without further approval by this board. And if it finally be resolved that the chief election officer of the county is hereby authorized to apply for any additional funds made available by the state for the defrayment of costs of efforts to combat COVID-19 in the election process and for the enhancement of election security, and to execute any grant agreements required to access those funds from the state until the general election on November 3rd, 2020.
Is that it? No, just kidding.
I
So
think
what does
that
that all
covers it.
mean in a nutshell? Could you explain?
This resolution is, in order for the grant application to be approved, we have to have a resolution in place along with a grant application to be sent along to the state. This resolution covers that myself as auditor treasurer will be responsible for the grant agreement and the deadlines that are set along with the funds and disbursement of the funds. It also talks about the 20% match and the 25% match. Again, The 20% match is what we're looking at utilizing our federal CARES funds that we receive for as a county as a whole to match this total amount.
Very good, thank you. Gentlemen?
I'll make a motion for a little bit more discussion.
Motion by Commissioner Wincher,
Second.
second by Commissioner Jelinski for further discussion. Discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
20% of what and 25% of what? So are we getting $1 million and then we gotta get paid 200,000 account? I'm just using that as an.
So specifically, it's 20% of the $29,578.17. And when we discussed at planning session, I received feedback that we as a county could utilize the federal 2020 CARES funds that we received as a county as a whole to match this specific CARES funds for elections.
So the 25% is what? Because you say, it says here, a 20% match of the grant with a 25% match for electronic roster purchases. That's what this resolution states.
That's if we were to purchase electronic rosters with this funds, we are not doing that
Oh, so if we're
Yep.
not doing it, why is it in there?
because we are capable in purchasing electronic rosters with this funds. So it's covering both ends that we are approving if we were to go that route. However, we are not purchasing electronic rosters with these funds.
Okay.
Further discussion? Gentlemen, we have a motion and a second. No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next on the agenda, I'm requesting approval for the 2020 voting equipment grant agreement. This is not included with the CARES funds. This is a separate agreement. The county is hereby awarded $31,542.26 for purchase of an optical scan counter or assistive voting devices. Morrison County must match this grant agreement of 50% cost, $31,542.26 of local funds.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for further discussion.
Motion by Commissioner Jelinski,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wilson. Further discussion? Discussions?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
where does the 50% of $31,542.26 come from?
We have a set line item specific for election equipment. And when we were discussing in planning session, the ultimate plan for this funds was to be used for assisted voting devices. And in our current line item that we have within Morrison County set for purchase of election equipment, we have a little over $210,000 set aside specifically for election equipment. So we can utilize those funds for this match. Currently, we are looking at an optical scan counter to help assist with the process of paper ballots that we have an uptick in for this election.
So at the end of the day, you're gonna end up with about $47,000 in that pool. You get 31,000 coming, plus you have to, am I right? Is this how it works? Plus you have to add 50% to it. So you'll come up with about 47, rough numbers, $47,000. Or
So-
am I on the wrong page?
In this application, Morrison County is awarded $31,542.26.
Yep.
So we have to match that. So it'd be a little over $63,000.
It'll be, okay, I'm sorry. It'll be, at the end of the day, it's 63,000, it's not gonna be 31,000.
The county has to match the $31,542.26.
She has to use the money on that equipment, so
Yeah.
the county's check could actually be more than that, right? If the equipment costs
Correct.
more than that? But you have to spend at least the match of what's
Sorry.
granted to us.
That's
Gotcha.
correct. And
Thank you.
And if we don't utilize the funds, we would then redirect it back.
Gotcha.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Gentlemen, this will be a roll call. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carried.
Next on the agenda, you'll see a report, the cash report for the end of June of this year. This is a report that you see on a monthly basis. It goes over where our current month is, and then the last column is a nice snapshot of where the last year was at the same time. Any questions at all?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Going back to the one that I made a motion, is that a roll call also? Because we will be spending money to match for the 31,000, excuse me, where am I at here? I went down too far. Yeah, the question about the 20% and 25%, that's also a match. Would that be a roll call too? At the county, which we just did we didn't do a roll call on that one. For that resolution or whatever it was, that was,
The 29.
yeah. That's way back.
Should we just do a roll call?
Like to bring up, which one was that now? Oh. Okay, gentlemen, we're gonna go and revisit the request approval of the CARES Act grant application, total amount 29,758.17, where it should have been a roll call. Commissioner Jelinski?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, Commissioner Wincher, for
Good catch.
catching it.
Thank you.
Any questions on this, on the cash report? Okay.
If I could add just with the cash report, I know we talked about tax collection, and it looks like we just ran reports the middle of July just to see where we're at. And it looks like we are up about $500,000 in collection from last year, so right where we should be on point for what we levied and what we collected.
Good.
Next, in your board packet, I have the second quarter cash investments and interest reports. So if you recall back, a commissioner had made a request to see the year as a snapshot. So I have first quarter interest reports in front of you so you can see a visual of the total interest for first quarter. And then if we go to the next page, you will see our second quarter interest reports. Again, time is of the essence, and interest rates are plummeting, if you will. So first quarter and even end of last year, I had mentioned to you as board members that we had callable CDs. And so majority of our callable CDs have been called on and then reinvested at a lower rate. I'm working closely with our local banks, finding that our local banks are offering the best rates. When investing last year, looking at interest rates, it was very competitive with our brokers and our local banks, and the times have definitely changed with that, and you can see that with the interest reports from first and second quarter. On the next page, I just threw in for fun the yearly interest report that you normally see at the beginning of the year. I did put this in just so you can see where we're at for 2020 for interest as a whole, and then where we were in 2019, 18, 17, 16, and 15. So it's just kind of a nice visual to see.
Very good.
And then the next two pages, I have our cash and investments. So again, the first page is the first quarter, January, February, March, which we have reviewed already. But I threw in now the second quarter banks, cash, and investments. So again, the top portion is the liquid revenue accounts. Middle portion is our special accounts. And then the bottom portion is our investments with our CDs. So, top portion again is kind of the fluid money, and then the bottom is tied up, if you will. And so this kind of gives you a good overall view of, if you're looking at the liquid totals and the grand totals on the bottom. Like I've said before, when you're looking at total numbers, it's not consistent month after month within the county. It's a roller coaster ride because we're doing the collection of taxes. So you can see that May's grand total on the bottom of May here is much higher than if you were looking at January's total. So just a nice visual for you to see where we're at, where our liquid and our investments are tied up for both brokers and local banks that we have. Any questions?
No.
Very good.
No? And then last but not least, I have a roll call vote request for board warrants.
Commissioners?
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Winter to pay the bills. Discussion? Be a roll call. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Winter?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you,
Got it.
Chelsea, and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Derek, nice to see ya.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda will be construction update. Mike? Good morning, Mike.
Morning, Mike.
I know you did.
Boss told me.
I gotcha.
My new boss.
I gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tabitha.
Did you call it Deborah?
I said Tabitha.
Thank you, very kind. I don't have mine in
Just
either.
kind of haunted,
I
aren't
thought she
you?
was Deb all along until she took her mask off.
All right, Mike.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
I handed out two budgets today. One is for the government center remodel, and the other one is for the public safety annex. There's not much really on the public safety annex to look at. We've had one billing so far over there, so other than that, really nothing's changed, so.
Moving along, though, and
Yep, moving along good. We've got the concrete poured. They're framing out they're installing all the girts along the outside walls. The bathroom's all framed up. They're gonna come tomorrow and insulate. And then by Monday, we should be able to start putting liner panel and stuff on over there. And then mechanical will be over there this week, start roughing in and stuff. So,
great.
Yep. And then the other one's the government center remodel. So I don't know if there's any specific questions on those at all, so.
Commissioners?
No, it looks like it's going good. How's the project coming over here?
Project's going well.
I'd like to ask Mike, why don't you tell us? Do we have any questions, Mike?
Project's going well. We're gonna finish putting the ceiling tiles in this week. We'll finish up the cabinetry this week. We'll be hanging doors and hardware tomorrow. Bathroom partitions on Thursday, and then Monday they'll start carpet. And there's roughly 2 weeks of carpet. John and I have gone through with Victoria as far as moving dispatch back in, and I think they've tentatively got that set up, I think, for August 24th of the week there to schedule their vendors and stuff, so.
How about the parking lot? How's that coming, do we know?
That's not Mike's, but
I know it's not.
I think it's going pretty good.
It looks like.
Looks like it, I mean, yeah, it looks like it's going good.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The last that I heard that they should be finishing up Friday, so
Oh, cool.
hopefully by
Nice.
come Monday, it'll all be said and done. It's looking really nice. I think they're
Yeah.
doing a wonderful job, so
Yeah,
we haven't, as
a
long
good
as the weather holds up and all that other good stuff, we should be on.
looks like the dirt is out of there, so the weather probably
Yeah,
won't
they've
hurt it
got
that much.
They've got a first layer down and
Yeah.
hopefully they'll get the next one or
Great.
two.
Yeah, I think they're getting ready to prep for sidewalks is what they're doing today, and then I think they're gonna start pouring those this afternoon.
Mike, the actual square footage of dispatch didn't change. That wall going to the west is still there, or did that get moved?
Nope, that is still there.
Okay,
Yep.
so the square footage is the same?
The square footage is the same. I guess the big change, I guess you'd want to say, or the difference in there is the windows. We furred over all the windows, because they needed more space to hang everything from. So we furred over the windows on the west side and the north wall, and we put backing and all that. And then, just the rough ends at the locations at each of the stations, so we did change some of that up. But they'll end up with more wall space, I guess, in the end would be the biggest thing for them,
Excellent.
so.
Excellent,
Good.
thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on Administrator's Report, CARES Act. Funding agreement. Good morning, Carol.
Hello, Carol.
Best for last. Thanks, Mike.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
So for this morning, there's a CARES Act funding agreement resolution that we have in the board packet. I don't know if Carol, you would like to read it or if you want me to?
Why don't you read it?
All right. I'm gonna turn my mic on here. Okay. So, resolution, whereas the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, is a respiratory disease that was declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization on March 11th, 2020. Whereas the Federal CARES Act was signed into law on March 27th, 2020, and was in part available to qualifying local, state, and federal agencies to cover expenses related to the unbudgeted expenditures incurred between March 1st, 2020 and December 30th, 2020. Due to the public health emergency caused by the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, excuse me. Whereas the Governor Tim Walz on June 26, 2020, formally allocated funds for counties, cities, and townships in the state of Minnesota, and that a portion is intended to be spent on economic support of the business in these jurisdictions. Whereas the RDFA and Community Development are a designated economic development organization for Morrison County, and that it is the financial interest of Morrison County to have a streamlined process to assist businesses in mitigating the impact of COVID-19 and related closures. Whereas Morrison County applied for, was awarded $4,083,740, and received the respective funding in July 2020 to directly apply to a broad range of necessary expenditures incurred as a result of COVID-19. Whereas Morrison County desires to transfer 10%, $408,374 of the total CARES Act funding to the RDFA to be spent in accordance with the terms identified in the grant application for the Business Assistance Grant Program administered by Community Development and the provisions of the CARES Act for allowable COVID-19 related expenses. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Morrison County Board Chair, Mike Lemire, and the Morrison County Commissioners, that the County Administrator, Deb Gruber, is hereby authorized to enter into agreement with Community Development to assist with the Business Assistance Grant Program and transfer $408,374 of CARES Act funding to the RDFA for respective distribution. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall become effective immediately upon its adoption on July 28th, 2020.
Very good, thank you. Morning, Carol.
Morning.
How are you doing? Sorry you had to wait so long.
That's all right, but everything's interesting. I learn something every time I come.
Well,
So
good.
that was good. I'm just here, to make sure that, this gets passed. And I guess what Deb and I said we're going to do, I'm going to write an article in the Morrison County Record for this week talking about the program. I already had one call before I came over here
Great.
up in Cushing that somebody could use it. So, and then we're gonna try probably taking the chair of the RDFA, Greg Zilka, and Deb and myself, maybe get on the radio, talk about it. That seems a good way to get about things. So, and then it's my understanding then you want to open the applications August 1st and close them August 28th? Is that right?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Wasn't it
Yeah.
August 7th or was it August 1st?
It was August 1st to the 28th.
Yeah, it
is
was-
what-
Meetings on the
yeah.
7th.
Yeah.
I know
And-
you were thinking on a weekly basis, but I don't know, Deb didn't like that
Yeah,
idea, so
yeah,
we're
she
gonna do
wanted to do it, all
Yeah,
at once,
yeah.
okay? And so, do you think that's a long enough time period? Well, you can always extend it too
Yeah.
if you need to, so.
And I think we'll go by your judgment.
Okay.
We trust that you're gonna handle this and do this. You've done this many times, so.
Yeah, so, yeah.
We're putting our trust in you.
Right. And I know that Deb too had, when we had discussed the application at planning session, we had some revisions and those were forwarded off to Carol to make those adjustments. And so then, once that's finalized and we'll
Yeah,
get
then
that
we can just-
information out to the record and,
Yeah, we can just run it on your letterhead, you know, the first page, so it,
okay.
Sure.
yeah.
Commissioner Wilson?
Carol, on here, RDFA and community development, how does that work together?
Well, I'm gonna be doing this on behalf of the RDFA, because I do staffing work for the RDFA.
Yep.
And then it's going to be, my understanding is the RDFA will approve the applications as they come in, or when we do it. And then, the RDFA is gonna contract, I believe, with Ritters, Thompson, and Olson.
Yep.
And then we'll say, Ritters and Thompson Olson, here, you can cut the checks. And then, they're gonna do kind of the accounting for it, because, you know, we're gonna have to, you know, the state's gonna come back on us,
Correct,
you know,
yeah.
and we've
There's
gotta
gonna be-
have some accounting done, and then they're gonna interface with Chelsea and her office to make sure that, you know, you have the information that they need for the audits.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Wilson, or is the community
Well, the
development part?
community
of what
development
he's-
part is the part that I'm questioning. What is community development doing?
Because community development has a contract with the RDFA to provide staffing services.
Oh, okay.
So that's
where
why
that
we're
comes
all
in.
tied together, yeah.
Okay. Let me see, what other question did I have? Can I get an applications and can I go around to my businesses and hand them out to them?
Please,
And tell them to send this in if they qualify for this? And
Please.
another thing, when we're talking, and I don't know if we discussed that, but I had some calls from people in the cities when the city got $5,000, for instance. I don't know if the paper or what said that, well, they wouldn't qualify. You know, I think they do qualify. They got $5,000, but I still think they qualify, do they not?
they have to have
have to answer
a
that.
physical business presence
Correct.
in Morrison County.
But I think their question came since we got some money from the city before, that means you're putting us right on the bottom and giving it to everybody else first, and I don't think that's what's
No,
happening here.
No, you actually called me and said, no, we're gonna open it up to everybody, and that won't disqualify anybody.
No,
But that's the
Correct.
questions that I had from
they
some
just gotta
people,
answer
so
the questions that they're not gonna be spending the money on the same thing. They used that,
Right.
the
that's
previous
what I
$100
explained to
for.
them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think our intent was too, for some people that haven't received anything yet,
Yep.
that we wanted to make sure they got something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so, if they qualify for that. But that's a couple calls I had from people over that news article was, well, you're gonna put us on the bottom because we got some, and I said, no, you just gotta put that down, we'll evaluate all.
Great.
And does PPP money, right, that doesn't really pertain to this, does it? I mean, if you
No.
wrote down that you got that money, that was for your help and so forth, that really has nothing to do with this.
Nothing to do with this,
Yes,
yeah.
okay. I'm just
There,
trying to
there
make
was a state grant program that the state said, if you got that, I think it was SBEL program, then, and that was a grant, then they said you couldn't use, you know, and get another grant for that, for the same expenses.
Okay.
Commissioners, could I get a motion and second, so it's on the table?
I'll move on it, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Jelinski, second by Commissioner Wilson. Discussions? Commissioner Winter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just hope that we're transparent when we're on the radio, because right now, I think, I've had a few phone calls from ag businesses, how they're gonna apply for this. I've had, 2 businesses contact me, and again, I like Commissioner Wilson's idea, if we get an application, but I just hope that we let them know, whether it's on the radio or in the paper, what they're really gonna need to qualify for this, because it's still up in the area, and will you have that all ready when you get on there or not?
As much as we can, you know, from the state changes things, the federal changes things as you go. So to that day, we can tell them, if it changes the next week, you know, it could change, but we just tell them, you know, what we can do for
And
now.
I would like to make
Yeah.
sure that you said, you
Yeah.
know, this is based on today. Tomorrow, the state could say this, you know, so those are things that we have to make sure that everybody has the right best information as possible.
Commissioner Jelinski.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, Carol, Commissioner Wincher, if that happens, I apply today, following today's rules, and let's be real honest, they change every day. Tomorrow they change. Are you gonna contact me, or will there be a need, or has my application been now submitted? Or, once you go through these applications a month from now, they've changed 30 times. Every day they changed. I was the first one to put an application in. Am I gonna have to come back the 1st of September, let's just make that up for a fun date, and refill out my application? I filled it out exactly like I was told the first time.
And if it's before it was funded, so yes, we'd have to call you and say, this changed.
So with that in mind, that is exactly what we would do then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
that's providing something would change between the application and before they get it.
Yes.
The other question I had on the application, if it's what I've seen before, and I think Randy brought that up once with somebody about taxes. It says on there that, you know, I think it said on there, we need to know that you filed taxes. That doesn't mean I need to get all your tax papers. Does a letter like from your accountant say that you filed taxes for this or that, or what works for that?
What I've asked everyone with the Little Falls program, just send me the front page of your taxes that showed, you filed them. That's all I need,
Or have all the numbers on it?
I don't need a 34-page document. Just there's that cover page that says, this is how much I owe and it was sent in, okay? That's all I need. Okay, and those things stay private then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further discussion? This will be a roll call. Myself, aye. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson? Thanks
Okay.
again, Carol.
Good, we'll start
Thank you, Carol.
running. We'll
Good luck
start-
to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna need it.
Appreciate it.
Thank
I do
you.
have another question that was brought up, if I may. What is this gonna cost the county for RDFA or whatever to do this? Do you have you must have something in place that you did with the city?
Well, if the RDFA hires Reuters and Thompson,
Yep, yep.
I've got a bid for $950 there. And then I talked with Steve Messerschmidt, and it'll be my time, whatever I bill out at, in order to put everything together. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That was
And
the
that'll-
question that came up, I
So
think.
that being said, does that money come out of this money? Or does that money come out of, do you know? I don't know the
Yes.
answer to that question.
It would. We can use consulting services
Out of this
out
money?
of this fund
Okay, very good.
And administrative fees.
and
yeah.
administrative fees,
Very good.
correct?
Thank you.
So Carol, when will the applications be ready that I can start handing out?
Well, hopefully by the end of the week,
Okay,
I'll
Sounds
just,
good.
I'll just get with Steve or Beth
Sure.
and.
We'll
and you can
finalize a
remo-
couple of things and
And,
get it
and
printed
it
up.
would be very good, then if you'll email them out to all the commissioners and say, go to your businesses
Yeah.
and do
Correct.
this,
That's awesome.
It's the same
Good idea.
with the mayors too.
Mhm.
We need to do that,
Yeah.
get this, we need everybody on board to help spread the word.
And
Well,
Mr.
good.
Chair, it would be a good thing maybe to, that the applications would be not just available through RDFA, maybe at the county courthouse. I don't know, it'd be places where people
Correct.
could maybe put them in the city of Piers, I don't know, just a thought.
Are you gonna have them on the county website too? That
Yeah,
will
we can
in-
put a link out there.
Probably when you
Here's
get
what's-
right to your front page, link to,
You
yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Yeah, there's many different avenues that we could use. We could use social media. I mean, however we gotta reach these businesses. And if it is, physically going out there and seeing them and handing them an app, then so be it. I mean, we'll prepare for that.
Yeah, I guess I would like about 50 copies or so I
Sure.
can, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, there was something about home businesses, so let's take a beauty parlor, which is probably a lot of them. If it's in the home, then they do not qualify?
That's right.
No.
Or do they
Unless they're a
qualify?
daycare.
The only thing that you can have that would be eligible, as we've been told by the state, and they've reiterated it quite strongly, is daycare. That's the only thing. If it's another home-based business, like a beauty shop or whatever, no.
Now, when you say that, what about a home-based business that's got their license and I mean, it's like this is my business here, my house is here, that does not qualify if it's hooked together? But if you're a real business, I guess I'm trying to understand that.
The only home-based, the easiest way to think about it is the only home-based business is daycare. It's the only one that'll get it.
So that's home-based if you're at home. I
Yep.
mean,
Right.
that's
Yep.
okay.
It's not a center.
You know, I
Just so you
I,
understand that.
I have two in my district salons, and they have a separate room for their salons, but they're on home base,
Still
so
home,
they,
yep.
Still
wouldn't-
home.
Just so we know that, because.
they would not qualify.
No.
Because it doesn't qualify under this terms, if I understand
That's
correctly.
right.
Well, that's
So
weird.
in other words, anything at home except daycare does not qualify.
Right.
Correct.
That's right.
Yep.
That's
At
what the
this point in
state said.
time, I mean, it could change, it could get,
I
you
don't see
know,
it changing a whole lot. I mean, they got it out here.
I
We're gonna
don't,
start
but
doing it. I can't see.
We got a bunch of money too that we were really expecting, and
Yeah.
so, you know,
Yeah,
I
but-
mean, it all just kind of depends on what gets handed out, but as of today, that's where it stands.
Just so we're not giving it to people that
Well,
don't.
right, I
know
mean,
they
we
can't
have
do it.
other farmers that have different mechanics and all that, yeah, so they.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Carol.
All
Carol,
right,
thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Carol. We'll be in touch.
We're meeting on the 7th with this, right, Carol? We're meeting on the
Yes,
7th.
the
right?
RDFA, the 7th here,
Here,
the
yep.
boardroom, and the notice will be in the record.
Okay, sounds good.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, that is all that I have for you today.
All right.
Tabitha will need to get
Do our
you your
calendars.
schedules.
Commissioner Winchell, would you like to start?
Sure. What day, what's the days? I know, I just was, my mind was. going.
August 2nd through August 15th.
Okay. On the 4th, planning session at 8:30. I'm assuming that's here. At, well, who knows? On Wednesday, I have a meeting with Great River Regional Library and the City of St. Cloud on a lease agreement. It'll be at Rice Creamery at 1 o'clock on the 5th. And on the 7th, TSWAC, I'm assuming it's at the landfill at 8:30 on Friday.
Nope.
On the 11th, we have a board at 9 o'clock. And I'm sure I missed some other ones, but that's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Jelinski, you ready?
Mr. Chair, I am.
Okay.
On the 4th, besides the planning meeting, I believe at 7 o'clock, I think, it's a Board of Adjustments. On the 6th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I have at my house, I'll have a State Emergency Communications Board Legislative Committee phone conference, I believe. 8:30 is that. And the 11th, at noon, I've got a Towards Zero Death meeting scheduled here, I believe at the Government Center. If it's not gonna be visual, virtual, I'm not sure yet. On the 12th, our local 4-H is gonna be having a 4-H show on the 12th, 13th, probably on the 14th and 15th also, I'm not sure, but I've committed to work a shift from 7:30 to 9:30 at the fairgrounds on the 12th.
Do you have that phone number, Commissioner Jelinski? Because I
No,
recalled me, and
I might have a phone number maybe in here.
I'll get somebody that works. Thank you.
On the 13th, at 6 PM, I've got a Trails meeting. I have no idea where it is gonna be, because there wasn't one last month, and nobody got a hold of me about anything. So that's yet to be determined. On the 14th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board has a RAC meeting, and that is gonna be at the Alexandria Fire Hall. I have not been attending them as of late. And, Mr. Chair, that's all I've got at this time.
Very good. Commissioner Wilson?
Okay, on August 7th, I got RDFA. It'll be here at the courthouse at 11 o'clock. I think it's 11, after our board meeting. And I've got to go to the fairgrounds on the 11th. to help with that. On the 12th is the MTWCHB, the Health Board, and I think that's going to be on the computer, but it's at 3 o'clock. And that is it.
All right, the 10th, 5:30 Yellow Ribbon. It's been virtual the last few times, so I assume it will be again. And the 12th, I'll be at the fair from 8 to 10. Checking animals in.
I get to do,
That'd be awesome.
parking.
How about that?
I get to do parking.
I'm a water
I
hydrant
clean the toilets, but
attendant.
they wouldn't let me. What are you doing?
I'm a water hydrant attendant.
Nice.
Well, you're qualified.
I think I am. Not exactly sure what that means, but I think I am.
Tabitha,
right.
you look like you had a question for me.
Did you say RDFA was on the 7th?
Yep,
I think.
yep. Oh,
30,
yeah, after T-SPAC, yep.
7019.
Anything else, Beth? Commissioners, could I get a motion second?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Winter,
Second.
second by Commissioner Jelinski. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Good job, Mr.
You
Chairman.
guys did a good job.